I collect spores, molds, and fungus.
Bankman, get a sample of this.
Our guest today is renowned within the Ghostbusters prop building community and also the wider replica community as well, offering extremely accurate costumes, accessories, footwear, props from lots of franchises such as Star Wars, Indiana Jones, James Bond, Lord of the Rings, Marvel, DC, and of course, Ghostbusters. Please welcome to the show, Magnoli Clothiers, and all around nice person, Mr. Indy Magnoli. How are you doing, man? Welcome to the show.
Very good. I'm honored to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great. We've got lots of questions lined up for you. So we're really looking forward to kind of diving into everything Magnoli Clothiers, really. So I suppose, where do we start then? So I think it goes without saying that you are certainly really well known in the prop and costuming world. I personally followed many of your threads on the RPF over the years, and I think, in all honesty, probably my first awareness of you came from looking at various threads on the RPF who had purchased your Indiana Jones jackets, whips, and things like that. So, in your own words, could you give us a little bit of background on how Magnoli Clothiers came to be? Was it that you had an interest in film props and it kind of naturally developed out of that, or was it more of a strategic spotting of a gap in the market and you kind of went in from that direction?
It's all just a big happy accident, really. Quoting Bob Ross there. I mean, my plans. What's the quote? Man plans, God laughs, something like that.
Yeah.
My plan was to be an archaeologist.
Wow.
I was studying archaeology at the University of New Mexico, and as a typical poor college student, I couldn't afford a lot of things I wanted to get. I was interested in props and artifacts and things like that. And so I started making things myself. I got some of that DAS clay, some home-baked clay, and I started sculpting stuff that looks like a kindergarten kid's ashtray. It was bad. It was so bad. Little golden idol and a holy grail and all sorts of things like that. Different artifacts, the Venus of Willendorf. And I just started doing it, getting a little bit better. And it was the early days of the internet. This is in the 90s. And I started taking photos and just sharing it with people and getting feedback and ideas. And it wasn't long before people say, "Oh, well, that's nice. Can you make one for me?" So, okay, sure. Why not? So in between classes and things like that, I'd make this, make that. And it took off from there. I started doing a little bit more and more. After I finished my bachelor's degree in archaeology, my plan was to go to a master's and PhD, because that's what you do if you're going to be an archaeologist. A bachelor's doesn't do anything. But I said, I'm going to take a year off. I'm going to go do something. I want to travel. So I found a teaching job in New Zealand. I said, well, I'll do that for a year. That'll be cool. Go back to the States. So I came to New Zealand, which is where I am right now. And I met a girl. We got married.
Classic story.
Bought a house. Had a bunch of kids. And I've been here ever since. And so I kept teaching for a little bit. But as I was teaching, I was doing sort of prop stuff on the side. And I wasn't sure I didn't know if it was a viable thing that I could keep doing. It was a fun hobby. But I kept doing it, and I was working full time, starting a family. And I soon realized that this was keeping me really busy. So I started going part-time teaching. And eventually I was fewer and fewer hours, and I managed to get out entirely. This is in the early 2000s. And then I was doing this full time. And it came to pass that, the guys in the different communities approached me and said, well, have you thought about doing clothing? And I said, oh, maybe I'll look into it. And so I found a tailor in Thailand, they've been doing it for generations. And I started doing some adventure clothing. So adventure shirts, old cavalry twill trousers. That was sort of the start of it. And then people say, can you make this suit? Can you make that suit? So they send me some pictures of James Bond. Can you make that style? Doctor Who fans showed up and said, can you do the David Tennant style suit? And so we started tailors doing that. And didn't take long before Clothiers was overtaking props, and it got to a point where I actually had to stop doing props. I didn't have any time.
Wow.
And that started in 2005 was when he started the Clothiers, and I think maybe I did that. Hard to say, maybe 5, 6, 7 years before I had to bring someone else to help me. So now we've got several employees that work full time with me. We've started doing props again. That was a few years. So this is probably maybe 2017, 2018, something like that. We started doing, I brought in someone to help me with props. And so we started doing props again. So both are going. The bulk of the business is still really Clothiers.
Uh-huh.
But the whole thing is based on customer demand. So very rarely will I go out and say, I want to make X. It happens every now and then. I'll pick something and I really want to do it. But almost all the time, it's someone comes to me and says, look, can you do this? And we look at the viability. We ask around, are other people interested? And then if it looks like it's a good fit, then we do it. So I'd say 95% of what we do is customer demand.
That's awesome. I really love the fact that you started out as an archaeologist and then you did adventure style clothing. I think that is it's such a natural progression. It's great.
The funny thing is, talk about full circle. When I was in, I think, primary school. I think I was still in. So this is 8th grade in the States, Form 3, talking New Zealand. I was really into Ghostbusters. It was one of my first loves. And I remember seriously looking into, okay, well, how do I do this? And I ended up finding Duke University had a department that did this kind of stuff. And I was actually looking into it. And it was, I think I kind of grew out of it. Think, okay, being a Ghostbuster maybe not the best job to look for, but as a kid, I was actually looking into it. And so it's kind of cool. In fact, my first, what I'd call proper replica as a kid was a proton pack.
Yeah.
The first thing most people know me for, like you said, the Indiana Jones stuff, a lot of Lord of the Rings stuff. But my first thing that I built myself, I got a cardboard box. I got a biscuit, a cookie tin. That was my cyclotron. I got a couple of old karate belts. That was my straps. And I built a ridiculous proton pack, but that was the start. And it took me, I don't know, 20, 30 years or something to get it and finally build myself a decent one. It was kind of cool, kind of full circle again. So starting to get into, jumpsuits and the military belts, the boots and all this it's sort of a childhood dream coming true now to come really full circle like that. The Indiana Jones one was a small circle. This is the Ghostbusters is a huge circle.
Yeah. I think we've definitely all been there. I certainly remember doing exactly the same thing, building, a proton pack out of things that I found around the house. The proton wand was essentially like a washing up liquid bottle. And, as a kid, it worked. It looks like a proton pack, So yeah, it's awesome to get to the point when you get older and you have something which is, as near as damn it as it comes off the set and you've got something there. It's even now, it never, it never loses its appeal to me where I can sit and watch Ghostbusters and I'm like, wow, I've got one of those downstairs. That's pretty cool. It's such a, I don't know. I don't know what it is.
You watch Ghostbusters without having your proton pack next to you. Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, look, I'm in my flight suit. What more can I say? So I think probably the next question that kind of leads on from that then is, obviously you're going out and you're building these costumes and there's an awful lot of care that goes into creating what you do. And there has to be an awful lot of research that goes into replicating, even something like the jumpsuit. I know that, I think any community, whether it's Ghostbusters or whatever, as soon as someone puts something out on the market, there's 200 people praising it and there'll be 50 people saying, well, this isn't right and that isn't right. And that's the kind of nature of the beast. So I suppose really, can you tell us a little bit about the process that you go through when you're researching something like the jumpsuit from Ghostbusters, for example?
Yeah, it's funny. Anyone that gets into any hobby like this, I guess it's like most hobbies, really. You start with a very course view of it. You start. I remember the first thing someone approached me and said, "Can you do these jumpsuits?" And I knew them pretty well, not like I do now, but I knew what they looked like, and I said, "Well, I've seen them on Amazon for like $50. We're not going to be able to compete with that,
Right?
okay? We'll go there." And they said, "No, we want it really good." And I said, "Well, okay, but for us to do this is going to be a lot of money." At the time, I was thinking through. See, we have what we call our white label line, which is it's something that when we have a really popular style, we'll do it in that department, and it is limited in scope, limited in what you can customize. But then we have, and that's very limited. Then we have our sort of standard custom department, which is where the bulk of our stuff is done, and we can do everything. It's sort of our specialty. We do totally custom everything. You want a leather jacket, any color, any shape, any size, patches, embroidery, lining, everything. We do anything. And that's really the bulk of it. And I was thinking it's going to have to be that because we're not going to be able to make hundreds of these. It's not the demand. It's Amazon. You can get them $50. So I'm thinking it's going to cost us $500-$600 for a jumpsuit because we've done other jumpsuits before and they're super expensive. And they said, "Oh, okay. There is a demand." I said, "Okay, look, if there's really demand, maybe we can get it down to the 200-ish, 250 mark." And they said, "That'd be great." So I'm thinking, really? You can get them for $50, but then you do the deep dive, right? You start
right.
details, and then you start realizing. I had a jumpsuit. I just had a regular vintage one that I got from somewhere, and I looked at it and I thought, well, this is really close. So that was the first thing we took to start pattern making. In fact, I sent that to our pattern maker. And I said, well, look, this is the jumping point, so we want to copy this. But then I start looking into it, and then the fans get wind that you're doing it. So then you get the experts that come to you. And when I say experts, there's the true meaning, and then there's the tongue-in-cheek meaning. You've got the ones who really do know their stuff, and then you have then we know the experts. But there were the guys that had images of all the vintage suits, high resolution, tape measures all over it, and I thought this is great. And I started looking, and I think every single thing about that sample suit that I sent to our pattern maker is wrong. Everything. I think every single thing about it was wrong. So you start going into those details, and I think it's one of the reasons why people come to us is because we do take the details seriously. And I'd say I don't know if I'd call myself OCD, but it's pretty close. A lot of times I will get obsessed in details to the point that I think, should I even be worrying about a certain point? Is anyone going to care? And a lot of times it'll come down to doing it, showing it, and seeing what the fans say. I think our first run of the ripstop cotton, people loved it, and then they started saying, I think we did the first run, it was really good. We sort of hit it out of the park on the first try, and then when we ran out of that cotton, the supplier just gave us more. And usually what happens in that case, we just keep going. We don't double check. We don't say, because usually they're just going to get the same stuff. But apparently it was a little bit smaller. And it wasn't until we bought it, we cut it, we made it, we shipped it, which took a few months, because of the backlog. And then customers start getting it and say, hey, the squares have changed. Oh, no. By how much? It doesn't look like much. But, we're talking about serious fans here, so millimeters. So then we go back to the drawing board, we find the old one. But it's interesting because things like that happen, and you can't predict them happening. You can't predict what are those things that fans are going to pinpoint to say, look, this is an important feature. A lot of times, we'll be making, like we made the Heath Ledger Joker coat, and there were so many complexities in it. But a lot of them fans didn't even notice. And so I'm getting OCD about a particular point, and they don't even notice. So I think, okay, we don't worry about it, or we do worry about it. And these are the kind of things that we deal with sort of day to day. And we try to navigate it in such a way that we give the customers, the fans, what they want. But I think it is tricky to try to balance getting everything that they want, getting the price, getting it done in the right amount of time. It's a challenge.
You've balanced
Yeah,
it
I
well
mean,
so
I think,
far.
yeah,
Knock on wood.
yeah, I think it's really, really interesting because, you know, how do you call a piece done? Because, like, if I'm building props or costumes, they're almost never really finished. I'm always often going back, making changes,
Yep.
changing things around to be a little bit more accurate. Like, how hard is it for you to balance that screen accuracy that you're going for versus the commercial side of the business? Because you can't have things stay in R&D forever, right?
Yeah, it's extremely difficult. I think one of the hardest things, you do get to the point where you think, okay, we're happy with the result. Let's get it out there. And then a lot of times you can only show so much in pictures, so customers have to get them. We look at them, we think they look great, and then a customer gets it and they don't like this or they don't like that. You can't please everyone.
No.
That's a matter of fact. So I think after having done this for years, you get to the point where you realize, okay, this person is maybe a little bit too strict.
Yeah.
I think we do have a good idea of what is within a normal realm of accuracy.
Mhm.
But then even the bane of our work is so many times, I cannot exaggerate, so many times we will release something and the week after, the most amazing discovery is made. And
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
We will put in, I just finished a shirt. I just spent days, literally days, hand drawing a pattern of this 80s Aloha shirt. I drew it by hand from blurry screen grabs and everything.
Wow.
I'm ready to send it to the printer, and then I get an email. Hey, look, we found an original, perfect, high resolution flat scan of the entire thing.
Wow. The chances.
Yeah.
And so that happens too. So even if we can do our best, we get it out there, but then new information comes to light all the time, and it's not just new things. It's things from 30 years ago.
Yeah.
We still make new discoveries all the time, and it's fascinating, but it can be frustrating.
The thing is, as well, is there's so many fans out there of these franchises that there's going to be some fans somewhere that have got images on their computer that people don't know about, and maybe they haven't shared them with the community, and then maybe they just forgot they even had them, and then all of a sudden, like you say, suddenly something comes to light. I think in our most recent podcast, we had Stuart Thompson on from the Ghostbusters reference library on the Facebook groups, and some of the stuff that he's managed to produce on there has been fantastic for builders to be able to get good accurate measurements of props, costumes, and things of that nature. So you are right. I can imagine it being a bit of a nightmare when you spend something, even from a building. I've been building something, and then all of a sudden maybe it's not been found, but like you spend ages building something, and then suddenly there's an announcement that some company are going to be releasing like a replica of it, and you're like, oh my god. Like
Yeah. Well, a lot of times
So-
this stuff doesn't come to light either. It's not until you've actually come forward and shown what you've done. Sometimes we'll make an announcement. I've taken it more now where I will announce that we're going to work on something. That way we can get feedback in as early as possible. But a lot of times it won't be until you're wrapped up the project and you release it, and then someone will say, "It looks great, but you should do this. Here, this is why."
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it would have been nice to know that months ago, but thank you now.
Yeah.
So let's see. Maybe we have to sell what we have until we can update it, or it is kind of a shame because then you have the people who want it ASAP, so they get on board right away, and it's great because they're supporting us. But then maybe they don't get the most accurate product, and and then they have to buy another one. And it's sort of an old joke in the early days of prop making. There are a lot of props I did that I would get it done as quickly as possible and sell one. And then my next one was better, and my next one was better, and my next one was better. And it's, I don't know how do you navigate that? It's all, I think, part of the hobby, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
That's the same with most companies, though, isn't it? That any company, if you look at Apple, for instance, they make the iPod, and every single iPod after that has got better and better and better until they don't make them anymore. But that's besides the point. But any manufacturer wants to sort of make their product better and better. The fact that you do the same, you want to make the things that you do as accurate as you can, and the next one, if you've got another one, is even more accurate than the one before. That's brilliant.
Yeah,
I think you have
probably
to.
makes it harder, I guess, that as a fan, it's not just a business for us. It's we're all fans here. We're all nerds as well. So, we want to try to get the best thing out as we can. And we kind of, we suffer the same thing. I mean, you can see I'm a collector too. So I've been on both sides of this. So it's, I think it's different than sitting in an ivory tower somewhere, just we're trying to make money. But,
well, the thing is as well is I think it's really good that you have that mentality towards, constantly improving, because, with the prop industry, there's always new people coming into the prop industry, and, some people that come in have got some serious skills. So it can be very easy sometimes for people to just put something out there, rest on the laurels. They're the only one doing it for the time being. Then all of a sudden someone else comes along and they've got a superior product, and suddenly it's a paradigm shift in terms of where people start going to get their products from. So yeah, you got to be careful, I guess. So with your with the paranormal jumpsuits, I guess another question is when it comes to producing something like a jacket, for example, sizings of jackets, they're pretty straightforward, right? But with a jumpsuit, I would imagine it's quite a bit more complicated than a jacket, because you've got all these different measurements that you're relying on your customer to give you the accurate measurements to make them. So has that been difficult where, I suppose you're in danger sometimes of producing something based on customers' descriptions and measurements? They get it and then they go, oh, hang on, no, it doesn't fit. And then, how do you handle those types of situations? Because if you built it to their standards, but then they're saying it doesn't fit, it can be difficult conversations, I imagine, right?
That's extremely difficult. With suits, like to say men's suits, it's fairly standard how people want a suit to fit. I mean, you can say someone, I want a slim fitting suit or a more casual fitting suit, but a suit has a particular way of fitting. So for those, we get off the body measurements, and it works pretty well. We don't have a lot of problem. There's always little hiccups, but for the most part, it works. When we started doing casual jackets, leather jackets, it became different because the way you want a jacket to fit can actually vary quite a bit. The idea of a leather jacket, for example, some people want it very slim fitting. Some people want it amazingly baggy. They want to wear on top of sweaters. How do you want it to fit? We don't know. And so even giving accurate off the body measurements isn't necessarily going to help. So what we started doing was made a measurement form for off garment. So we said, look, you've got to find a jacket that fits you well and measure it. Then you're sure to get it right. If you follow the guidelines, it should work. I don't have a jacket like that. Go to a secondhand store, find a friend.
Yeah.
Make several jackets. Say, look, I like the shoulders on this, the chest on this one, and just do it that way. But take it off an existing garment. So when we started doing the jumpsuits, the first thing we thought was, okay, we have a measurement guide, a standard measurement guide for jumpsuits. So there's the 36R, 36 short, 36 long, and so on, all the way down. Chest, short, regular, long. So I thought, okay, that's got to be fairly safe. People have been making flight suits for years, decades.
Right.
So that's be safe. So that's the first thing we did. That didn't go well because still there's the difference between off the body and off the garment. A big problem in today's society is you go to your local shop to buy a pair of pants for men's trousers. I mean, women know this for years. They have a size 8. What does 8 mean? Who knows? 8,
yeah, right.
8 what? It doesn't make sense. But men, okay, we've been basing it on inches and centimeters. So you go buy a pair of trousers and you say, I want the 36. I always wear 36. So to a man, they wear 36 trousers waist. I have a 36-inch waist. Great. Until they go and measure it and discover that 36 inches has been changing year after year after year.
Yeah.
As men get bigger, 36-inch trousers are getting bigger too, which doesn't make sense. So there's becoming this disparity between your actual waist measurement and your off-the-body waist. So I think that's come into a problem because whereas someone might say, oh, look, I always wear a 40 jacket, so I'm going to buy the 40 jumpsuit. But then they discover that 40 inches isn't what it used to be, which is ridiculous.
Right. Yeah.
So I have to say we had trouble with that. So then we said, okay, let's go off the body, and then we'll take off the body measurements. Then we know your size, and then we'll add to it and make the formula. But then we still had the problem of, how do you want your jumpsuit to fit? Some people wanted it, I wouldn't say slim fitting, but a regular fit. And some really saw the heavy bagginess in some of the Ghostbusters jumpsuits. And some of the films, they do look quite baggy. Are you planning to wear pants underneath? That's a big difference. Are you going to wear pants underneath or not? Is the jumpsuit your pants, or do you have another pair of pants underneath? So that was another problem. So we ended up, after going back and forth with customers quite a bit, now we just do we've gone like we did with the jackets. You need to measure a jumpsuit. I haven't got a jumpsuit. Okay, take a pair of pants, take a jacket that fit the right way, combine them, measure them. So we've done videos. We've done it on YouTube, and that was the best way that we found to do instructions, how to do it. There's a lot of back and forth with customer service on that, and that really seems the best way now. We've got instructional videos, we've got diagrams, and then we have the customer service that you have recourse to email back and forth. But it's a very long-winded way of saying, it's been a challenge. Yeah.
I mean, I think you've probably done everything you possibly can do, short of turning up at their house and physically taking the measurements.
Yeah, that's the hard thing, because there are mistakes. There are mistakes on both sides. We're not infallible. We've got someone in some part of the world taking measurements. They're sending it to us. We relay that to the pattern maker. The pattern maker's got to do it. They've got to assemble it, and in all that, hope that no one makes any mistakes.
Yeah, right.
But the good news is really, because these have been so popular, even the ones that have had mistakes, and we've found ways to deal with the customers to rectify that. We've ended up with some overstock suits, and they move fast. They do sell. There's someone out there that wants it, and even if it's not a perfect fit, they're happy to have it, because then it's discounted. They get it right away, whatever.
Yeah, I would imagine that's the big thing, is the lead time is, rather than waiting 6 to 8 months for something, they can have it pretty much like right now. That's a big benefit. I mean, going back to that point then, in terms of like, you're taking the measurements from people, you've done the research, and you've got the pattern sorted. How do you manage the manufacturing side of it? I mean, is it done locally? Are you outsourcing it to places like Pakistan, Vietnam, India, like these well-known clothing countries that are well known for producing garments? If you do that, how do you manage the QA of that? Because I would imagine it's a challenge if you're doing that remotely.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. It is good. Maybe not a good thing. An offshoot from this whole COVID experience is remote working has become a lot easier. But we have been doing it for years. Well before that, we've, like I said earlier, we started with Thailand as for tailoring, but they're really with suits. They're good with suits, and they're good with traditional things. You tell them, I want a shirt with some French cuffs, and I want a tuxedo with this kind of lapel. They know what they're doing. But then you start saying, look, I want it to look like some science fiction uniform from 300 years from now with this and that. And they're like, what? And they don't like it. So we've found different tailors around the world. We use India. We have people in Pakistan. We do stuff locally as well in New Zealand. We've used people in the USA. And as far as quality control, usually I've visited all these places, so I've been there myself, and so I've met all the players, make sure that everything's being done well locally. But generally, the way it works is, so we come up with the design, we hand it over, they produce a sample, we get it, we physically check it, make sure that it meets all our standards. And then if that's good, that ticks all the boxes, then we do it. And generally it's a drop ship straight to the customer, which saves on shipping costs, saves on time. And it's been working so far so good. Not a lot of problems. And most of our facilities are very good with dealing with QC problems. So if there is something that didn't work, usually we can remake it, or we can discount or whatever. Usually there's a remedy that keeps everyone happy.
It's so funny. I used to live over in Asia myself, and one part of that job at the time when I was doing that was I needed to go to China and source various components and things like that. And one of the things that I found is you really have to go there and meet these people, because a lot of the time, what I don't think people realize is if you do it remotely, you think you're dealing with the factory, and you're not. You're dealing with like an agent. That happens like all the time. So when it happened to me. So I went out to Hong Kong. I went over into the border to Shenzhen, and day number one, I come out of the hotel, the car's waiting for me, and people meet me and greet me, and then they take me over to the factory, and it's a great electronics factory, and they're walking me around and showing how everything's done. I think, this is great. This looks really good, but I know I've got like another couple of factories to go and visit. So the next day, I come down, whole new set of people, different car, ready to take me to the factory. They take me to the same factory that I went to on day one. So right away, I knew, well, this is, you'd never know that unless you went there. So that's why it's so important. You've got to have like this face-to-face meeting to catch this type of stuff out.
Yeah, it's good.
So,
it's good to know the people involved. I think it's good to put the face with the name, and you get to know what they're dealing with too. And I wouldn't have known, like, when I went to Bangkok, and I was talking to our head tailor there, and he said, okay, let's go to the market and look where we get some of our fabric. And we went, and it's a good hour plus drive through horrible traffic. If you've been in those regions, you see what the traffic's like and the way they drive, and it's crazy. And it gives you an appreciation for when if they send you an image and say, oh, this is the fabric we got, and say, it's close, but can you try again? Now you know what you're asking.
Yeah.
How bad you want that? I'm going to make some poor guy drive an hour there, an hour back. He has to spend an hour looking around. It's a different ask. So it's it kind of gets you to appreciate those kind of things. And I think it's a lot of things that the customer doesn't appreciate, because how would they? So to try to translate that into something they can understand, we try to do so on the forums, and you see the different way people react to time delays and different mistakes or just general QC issues, and you have the different kinds of people who the ones who are very understanding, the ones less so. But
I think generally speaking, the ones that are understanding are the ones that have been prop building for a while. They understand that what they're buying is it's to all intents and purposes a custom piece that they're buying that is built in short supply. And then you've got the other type of people that are just used to going to the store and buying it, and the moment they click buy now, they want my shipping number right away. It's you're right, it's two different types of people. But ultimately, Mark and I have talked about this many a time. We ultimately, at the end of the day, we're grown men playing dress up. It's not like we're waiting for food to arrive for the family, right? So if we have to wait like another month or so for something to arrive, well, so be it. That's just the way it is my opinion. So earlier on, when we were talking about the suits, like you said at the beginning, you were looking online and you can see suits online for $50 to $100, and then you're thinking, well, how can we compete with that? Obviously, you've got a very good reputation within multiple franchise communities. But for the person coming into Ghostbusters now, new, and they're green and they're out there looking for a jumpsuit, what makes your jumpsuit the jumpsuit to go for? Because there's obviously we know that you've gone to the the eighth degree really on terms of the pattern making and things like that. But are there other things that you've looked into where it takes it that step closer to authenticity?
Really, I'd say to each their own. Really, ours is really for those who want as close as you can get. Really, obviously the big one is the fabric. I don't think anyone makes ripstop. So you can see photos on our site, but the ripstop cotton is really the big thing. To me, that's one of the number one. As soon as I got that and compared it to my old, I've got an old one as well, which is just a sort of standard, I think a cotton blend with sort of a worsted weave, and immediately like, wow, okay, that does it. That's one of the things that really brings it. The pattern itself, like I said earlier, with the comparing what I thought was a really good jumpsuit to the details, everything. I think almost everything was wrong. The way the shoulders are attached, the shoulder panels, the shape of the pockets, the placement of the pockets, the placement of the Velcro elastic side straps, the types of pockets. This is the jacket version that we came up with. So a lot of this, I think that's actually identical. The zippers, the color of the zippers. And we even had fun with the label. Not a lot of people show that, but we've got a custom label based on the old military one, but we have a little extra blurb in there about how to wash it in case of ectoplasm and things like that. And it's a little Easter egg. But and ours now, we've got the hose attachment that comes with it as well.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah,
things like that. So it really is becoming sort of a one-stop shop if you want to get everything to go. But it's if you're an entry level buster, you want something to start with. I think those Amazon suits and different ones that you can get on eBay. That's a great starting point. And I'm a firm believer in you get something that you like. If you have fun with it, that's the important thing. A lot of people kind of look down on inaccuracies, and in fact, one of the things I love doing is I did it with my own pack. In a lot of ways, I would prefer to have a real life metal Greebly that's a little inaccurate versus maybe a really accurate resin copy, resin casting. But that's because that's how I like something to feel. It's part of the experience. It kind of takes me into the world a little bit, whereas a resin prop might not do that. So that's kind of how I am. And so it's the same kind of thing with clothing and costumes. What are you looking for? And so I think ours it really is tailored for what I call hardcore collector or fan, but each their own.
I think as well, like we said earlier on, that costumes are things and props are things that are never done and people go back to. And I think that for those people that even come into the market and buy one of the Amazon suits, it's probably highly likely at some point when they come back to that suit, they'll probably end up with one of yours, because that's the kind of rabbit hole that people end up going down, right?
Dangerous.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So I know that you mentioned with the suit that you talked about the ripstop, but then obviously for the Ghostbusters 2 suit, you got like the herringbone pattern, right?
So So that's the same thing. So so we had the ripstop there, but then we found a nice herringbone. So these are cottons that we find and then we dye to match the colors. And we did the same thing for the girls' suit. We use a similar herringbone. The charcoal suit as well. We've actually changed that from our original offering. So the original one was quite a nice. It was a nice sort of work cotton, like you'd see in an actual work overall.
Yeah.
But we ended up finding just recently. We were doing another run and we found a more accurate, what's more like a canvas weave. And so we're, like you said, we're always changing, always updating. So each one has its own unique fabric, unique coloring, even some of the details, even the width of the patch, the location of the shape of the pocket, even the zipper pulls are different. It's funny being, it's like a lot of like the Indiana Jones jackets, another one. They're ones that are supposed to be the same suit over and over again, but everyone's different. Every movie's different. It's interesting and frustrating all at the same time.
They like to make it easy for you, don't they?
No, every time a movie comes out and I look, a sequel comes out and I think, why? Why do they just let the guy have, even when he's supposed to be wearing the exact same outfit? Why do you have to change it? Like each costume designer has to put their mark or something.
That's true.
Like even in Ghostbusters Afterlife, I think those suits were like made from scratch, right? They weren't off the peg or anything like that. So it's crazy.
We go analyze them. They're going to be different. And I know they did a really good job to try to make them as close to the original as possible, like with the patch. And I remember seeing Adam Savage talking a lot about that.
Yeah.
But it's different. It's going to be different every time.
So obviously we've spoken about clothing, and that's one thing. Boots, I fear, are something else entirely. So along with the paranormal jumpsuits that you do, you've also got a really great set of boots. Like, how did that come about? What kind of research went into those?
I'm wearing them right now.
Oh, yeah.
I love these boots. I wear them all the time now. Take one off. Here you go. Good to have visual aids. You know, I was a teacher.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So the here we go. My boot.
There you go.
And yeah, I love the way it's breaking in. The leather that we ended up using for these, we found a company that specialized in saddlery. They made equestrian boots, you know, the tall riding boots. So we found them and we talked to them about it, and so we sent them images of vintage paratrooper boots. So the first pair, again, it's like I was saying earlier. They made it, and I saw it. They look so great. These are beautiful. These are perfect. And then I start looking at them and analyzing and think, oh man, so that's a thing. And then, oh yeah, I didn't even notice that stitch there is different. And a lot of things you don't notice until you get a physical something that you can compare to. So our first set, and I put it up on the RPF. I think I put it on Facebook. Facebook. Anyone knows Facebook?
Yeah.
Ooh, it wasn't pretty. It wasn't pretty.
You're brave.
But I said, look, calm down. It's called a prototype for a reason. It's the first one. So we went back and said, look, so fix this, fix that, do this, do that. Even the leather, I changed the leather. I didn't like the leather in the first one. So they produced, this is the second one. And this one is, I think this is nearly exactly what we offer now. I think there was maybe the zipper on this one is a little bit smaller gauge than what we offer now. But as soon as I got them, I went we did a 20-kilometer walk one day, and I wore these straight, no breaking in. I just put them on and walked 20 kilometers in them, and they were beautiful. I've never worn a pair of boots that you could do that. So because it was so soft and subtle, I was so happy. Like, this is great. And they've been going pretty well, but they're not cheap. You know, the good thing is they're comparable in price to a good military style boot, but there's not a lot of offerings out there right now. There's not, as opposed to the jumpsuits. You can find jumpsuits. You can find black boots, but none of them really tick the boxes that I've seen. So I think a lot of fans, what they've been doing is they just find the closest thing that they like, and a lot of them will spend the extra money and get a good quality military boot, which I think is cool. A nice combat boot, and so make it your own. That's kind of the cool thing with Ghostbusters, I think, is it's a uniform, but it's not a uniform. You can customize it the way you want. And but again, for those who want something that matches sort of the original, we've been offering these. The sizing has been going really well. We use standard US sizing, so that doesn't seem to have been a problem. And I think the reviews have been pretty good. Most fans seem pretty happy with them. And the fact that they're comfortable sort of right out of the box is a big
that's a testament if you're wearing them yourself, for sure.
Yeah.
Looking forward to them myself. I've got some.
I think
Mark. So yeah.
Yeah, you have. Yeah.
Yeah. So when they come, I shall have to do a review. Looking forward to them.
So actually, Mark, when they come, you're going to have to do a 20-kilometer walk. Actually,
break it in.
I think it might kill me if I did a 20-kilometer walk.
So I suppose then, just to start wrapping up a little bit, the final question really is have you got anything else in the pipeline at the moment which is Ghostbusters related, or are you waiting for the new movie to come out to see if anything jumps out at you, or what is the next Magnoli project that's you're looking into?
Yeah, well, so what we've done, the ones that just come out is we've just done the belt out there. So that's only just come out, and it's been really popular. Everyone's loved it. So we've got our the military ammo belt. So that one we went. Again, this is one that I was surprised about because they are available. There are similar ones, but again, none of them tick all the boxes. And so we went through and really analyzed. We've had the the buckles custom made, because none of the modern offerings are exactly the same. They're a little bit wider. So that was one thing we had custom done. Even the positioning of the hook on the right side, and the loop on the left side, that was one that I noticed others are different. They've swapped them around, positioning and stitching, all sorts of things like that. So and the other big thing that we did was we made them in bigger sizes. We've got the standard size, which is based on one of the originals, but then we've got the bigger size, which is great because a lot of guys have been, they find the one they like, but then they have to buy two, link them together, or some other jerry rigging of it, and it's not ideal. So now we offer a larger size, and it's the same price as a standard size. So that's been really popular. The next thing we're working on we're going to start doing the fobs. So we've got a prototype set finished. We're just doing some number crunching right now to see if it's viable, and I think it's going to be good. So we'll be offering a set of probably 4 fobs for a belt. The other big thing that a lot of people have been asking about is the hunting shirt.
The Venkman shirt,
yeah, nice.
So we did a prototype early last year, but the fabric it came out, it was just sort of a standard reddish orange cotton, and I said, no, it's not good enough. So we went back and looked, and we finally found this sort of chamois flannel type fabric, which I'm really happy about. I'm pretty happy with the color. It's not orange, it's not red, it's, what is it?
I instantly recognized it. So
so that's really cool. So that should be finishing up soon. The other one was another surprise people asked for, was the sort of RGB multicolored suits in different.
Oh yes.
They're awesome. They're really cool.
That was another one that a lot of people asked for, and so we finished. That was so this is the first color that we got done, the pink and the teal. We've got the other colors on the site now, but I don't have the physical samples here yet. But we're starting to produce them.
See, the good thing about that is you can just replicate the normal patterns, because it's not like the cartoon ones have got any specific screenshots you should be referencing, right?
Yeah, well, that's what we did. My idea with it was interesting, because it's some of the prop guys are having that same debate: is how do you bring a cartoon item, whether it's prop or costume, into real life? Because you can't. You have to make concessions or artistic choices somewhere. So my idea was, simply, what if it's real? What if it was a real thing? What if they actually, it's not a cartoon, it's a movie, live action. So I was basing it on the original, and then had recourse to things like, obviously, the color. The color was decidedly different in the cartoon, so I modified it a little bit, so it's not quite as round, a little bit not as pointed as our jackets, but somewhere in between. And then how do we translate the cuffs? Because the cuffs in the cartoon, it looks like they're kind of elastic, or
they do, yeah.
And I personally, I didn't like the idea of having an elasticated. I know some people they've done it that way, which is cool. My idea was, it has a tightening feature. The original does. And I think it was just the cartoonist's vision of how to make that into a simple cartoon, was to make it that style. So I went back to the original and just let's keep it. Because it can tighten up, and then it'll give you still that blousing look. But then the big change, of course, was then doing the same thing with the cuffs, because on the original didn't have that, right? They get tucked into the boots, or even if they're rocked out, they're just straight. So we added the similar the Velcro closure that's on the cuffs of the sleeve to the cuffs of the pants, and so it can kind of give that effect. So again, artistic license, but a good one. And I think most people have been happy with that choice, but not everyone. Can't please everyone.
I think
you can't please everyone.
That's been echoed in the new game as well, in Spirits Unleashed. I don't know if you've played that or seen any things that have come out of that, but they've just released real Ghostbusters suits in that game as well, and they followed the same sort of pattern. It's the same cut, it's the same jumpsuit. They've just recolored it, and it looks fantastic.
Yeah, I think it's a good artistic decision.
Yeah, it's a good way to go.
The other thing we just wrapped up recently too was the glasses. We came out with
Yeah, that's cool.
which is we're calling our Spengler glasses.
Nice.
Yeah, they're nice.
It was fairly easy to do because we've already made the sort of Savile Row professor glasses. Those ones that you see Harrison Ford wear in Indiana Jones. He wears it in Sabrina. Johnny Depp wears them in several movies, and so it's a very similar style to that one. Mainly the cable is all metal. There's no they don't have a little acetate tortoiseshell over the top. Shapes are a little bit different. The nose a little bit different, and it's one of those things that we at the start of there's a silver version of what we already do, but then you start going, no, actually every single thing is different.
Yeah.
But those have been really great because we make these. All of our glasses are made. They're not costume. They're not cosplay. They're real glasses. So obviously these come with demo lenses, but anyone buys these, you take it to your optometrist and they can put in your real lenses. They're not just a cheap cosplay thing.
Right.
Like our sunglasses, the same thing. They're real sunglasses. They're UV protected and all that. So it's a great thing that a cosplayer can wear. They can put their real lenses in, and it becomes a daily wear item. It's a practical use item. So that's
might have to get some of those as well then.
Yeah. But then in the pipeline, we've got the big thing are going to be the elbow pads. So those really works.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I mean, I know that. Yeah, elbow pads are, especially in the UK. We either have to get them from the States, and then the shipping's really expensive, and even then, GB Fans does some elbow pads, but sometimes they have them in, sometimes they don't, or we have to just go and get standard volleyball pads from here, and you got to dye them, and it's it's probably one of the, not that they're a difficult item to find, but they're just probably they're a little bit more hassle than they should be to have a good quality elbow pad. So that would be really cool to see you produce those. Yeah.
That's what we're trying to achieve is a good mix of price and accuracy and functionality. And the good thing is once we get all this, a lot of this will be in stock. We'll keep it in our warehouse here in New Zealand. So maybe we can start doing sort of packaged deals.
Right.
Get a belt, fob,
good idea.
elbow pads, and they can all go together as a good deal. So,
and that's great for the purchaser to just have everything arrive and Ghostbuster in a box basically when it comes through the door. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So finally then, if people want to find you online, social media, website, etc., where can they find you?
So the main Clothiers site is MagnoliClothiers.com. So that's our main clothing website. But then we also have MagnoliProps.com. So the prop site, obviously it's a different division. You can get things like this from the prop site. Have that there. So we've got a
nice the map. Yeah,
Iris,
that's cool.
Iris maps. These are printed for us actually in Egypt on actual handmade papyrus. In fact, it was It came out so good that we actually had to have we had to pay Egyptian authorities and a Portuguese expert to come and inspect the export to say that they're not real Egyptian papyrus.
Well, I mean, that's cool.
Actually antique, so that's kind of cool. It's like, but it's kind of cool that you think it's so good. I mean, they're all the same. They're probably not real. Yeah. So you find that on MagnoliProps.com. But you can find us on either of those sites. You can find the links we're on Facebook, Instagram. We're on YouTube. On YouTube, you can find a lot of our product videos as well as measurement instructions.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, and it's been a really good insight into the processes that you go through and the workmanship that you do. So, it's been fantastic. Thank you for coming on.
Oh, thank you for having me. A lot of fun.